Hello, friends. How are you? How's your world? I hope it's good. I am not going to be showing you the fun thing that's on the floor behind me. I just don't. I don't have the energy today. I'm just out of it. Uh, yeah. Now, some of you asked for stories about my father, and I've really been trying to figure out. I've racked my brain over the last few days to really think about what kind of stories I could share. Uh, and I'm sad to say I don't. I don't have a whole lot of like. Dad was. How do I explain this? I tried to explain this to somebody earlier and it didn't come across, I guess. But I tried to say that my father and I had a man to man relationship. It was not like a daddy and a son relationship. He was never my daddy, he was my father. I called him dad, but he was a father. He was a. Despite being a very non confrontational man, like he was never the kind of person that you would avoid, like, that people would avoid on the street. Like he came across, he was not imposing. He was a large man like me, 6'4", big guy, but not, never, his demeanor was always pleasant. He was always just a happy person to be around. But he was a very strict man. He, grew up in a very strict Christian, fiscally conservative household with, just like that, like classic, like waspy upbringing, and he carried that forward. And so when I was a kid, thinking back to like a child, like we're talking 8 and under, like I think my father and I had moments together. His favorite things were work and then work. He was a school teacher. He taught auto mechanics, and he would come home from auto mechanics and he would work in the yard. His favorite, he was always an appearances person. The yard had to be perfect. The exterior of the house had to be perfect because that reflected how you lived. He would say that the outside of your house reflects how you live on the inside, and so it was always perfect. And then he would come inside and do paperwork, like grade papers, and then eat dinner. And then his second favorite thing was sports. When I was a kid, it was NFL and NASCAR. I don't think he really kept up with NASCAR too much in the later years. But he was that classic like dad that had his chair downstairs, like in a separate room of the house from everybody else. He had his chair and he watched TV. That was dad. And so I can remember being a little kid and going down there and spending time with him, like sitting on the chair with him, eating peanuts and watching NASCAR or whatever. But he was never the dad that would like involve himself in my interests. Like that just wasn't his thing. And when I was little, little, I didn't. That wasn't. I involved myself in his interest. He taught me construction. He taught me like literally. We would, even when I was tiny, I was helping him do construction projects and whatnot. Working on cars, welding. He taught me all that stuff. As I got older, I resented the fact that he wasn't like a playful, like, I don't want to say, it sounds bad to say he wasn't a loving father. He was a loving father, but he wasn't that like, there was no emotion. He was not he never showed his emotions. It was not a like, come here son, give me a hug kind of relationship. We've never had that kind of relationship. And so like the story that I have about dad is that I've been working all week. I haven't taken time off. And that's just a direct reflection of my father. Like that was, to him, duty was the most important thing on this planet. And he upheld his end of duty to a fault, you know? And I feel like the best way I could possibly honor him is to just do that myself. Like continue, just do what I have to do. And all throughout my years, I could hear my father in my head as I would work on cars, as I would work on my house or whatever, I could hear these little things that he taught me that I just never realized were super important. I can remember being under a car at work one day, and I had to replace an oil pump. And an oil pump is typically underneath the engine, underneath the oil pan. So where you would drain oil, you have to take all that off. It's a mess. It makes a mess. It drips everywhere. And the oil pan has like, I think I was working on maybe it was a Jeep. I'm not sure. Whatever this oil pan was, it has like 20 bolts holding it on. They're, spaced every inch and a half or so all the way around this giant oil pan. And I was under the car. I had taken this whole thing off. I'd put an oil pump on, changed the oil filter, or the internal filter, the pump filter. There's a little screen. It's not really a filter. It's a screen. I'd replace that. Replace the seal on the... there was no oil pan seal. They were like something you would buy. They were just RTV. You just take a tube of sealant basically and squeeze it around this thing, put it up in place, and screw it back in. So I put this thing up. I screwed it back in. I started putting all the bolts in, and I got down to the last bolt, and it would not fit. There was like the hole was so misaligned that I could not get the bolt in, and I could just immediately. I heard my father tell me, "Put all the bolts in before you tighten them, idiot." Like that was like he would never have called me an idiot, but that was me internalizing the fact that my father taught me my whole life: put all the bolts in, then tighten them. And in that moment, it was just like, yeah, you got me. You got me, Dad. You taught me this. I should have done this correctly, and instead I tried to rush it. So, my stories about my father are like spending summers, because he was a school teacher, putting a new house on the roof, or new roof on the house, putting a new roof on my grandfather's house, building a deck, building it's just work. Like, it was work. But ultimately, as I mentioned yesterday, as I grew up, as I got older, I realized like all of these things my father taught me how to do are so beneficial. Because I can just fix stuff. I just know how to fix stuff. Whatever it might be. I know how to build stuff. Whatever it might be. And that's all him, right? That's him living on through me in some way that it's hard to really put into words. That was his love. That was his care. Was like making sure that I could go out into the world and accomplish without being dependent. And I think that's very powerful. But at the same time, sometimes it can be frustrating to be so bullheaded like my father. I recognize it too. I recognize that as much as I would say he was stubborn, I can see it in myself, and I can recognize when I'm not being thoughtful in my actions, and I'm just pressing forward because that's what you're supposed to do. So I will try to come up with some better stories to tell you about Dad. Just know that he was a very loved man. He taught for 32 years, and he has so many students out there in the world that had amazing careers thanks to him. He was that teacher that people came back to school to visit and came to his house to visit. Like, he made real relationships with his students, and he really was a father figure to hundreds, thousands, I don't know, I'm not the only one he taught, but he definitely instilled a curiosity in me that hopefully persists until I'm gone, because just hopefully, Thank you all for showing interest. I really will. I will try to find some good... I know there's stories. They're just not coming to top of mind right now, and I'm not really sure why. It's a little bit frustrating. But I'm more or less reflecting these last few days on who my father meant what he meant to me. Like who was he in my life? Because in a lot of ways, I could say he wasn't what I wanted out of a father or whatever, but he was what I needed for sure, you know? And we had a really good relationship, even though it wasn't like a lovey, hug it out kind of relationship. It was a man-to-man understanding, and I think it was just fine, you know? So, thanks for watching. Thank you for reaching out all week long. I very much appreciate that. It feels really good to know that so many people care. Sometimes it's easy to forget that. So thank you. I appreciate you very much. I will see you again. Oh, you should like the video. You should leave a message, like in the thing, and you should subscribe. I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's 1,000 plus little things happy, successful people do differently. We are learning 14 rules for being you. Number 4, choose the right perspective. Perspective is everything. When faced with the long checkout lines or traffic jams, you can get frustrated and enraged, or you can spend that time daydreaming, conversing, or watching the clouds. The first choice will raise your blood pressure. The second will raise your consciousness. Yeah, perspective is really important, and it's one of the reasons I like reading fiction. If you've never really read a lot of fiction, it's really wonderful to read events from somebody else's perspective, and it really helps sometimes in those moments for you to shift your own perspective and look at something a little differently. And I think that's a really good skill to cultivate.